Hello, I'm Donna Chacko, and I'm here with Serenity and Health, and I'm with my friend Peg O'Brien. Hi, Peg.
Hey Donna, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for doing this. This is our first pop-up conversation, and we're going to talk about things having to do with health of body, mind, and spirit. I founded Serenity and Health in 2016 or 14, and in order to promote those things. And I feel really fortunate to have Peg here because she's a member of St. Mark's, and she came to the very, very first program that I offered in 2014, now almost 6 years ago, which is shocking. So you remember that, how that all came about, Peg, how you ended up showing up at that little conference room at church?
I sure do. It's actually very vivid in my memory. And thank you, first of all, for having me and including me on this interview. I think first of all, it's my pleasure, but I also think it's very important. So yes, I met Donna, in 2014, as you said. And that was about 4 years after my husband Jim passed away. So everybody grieves differently and reacts differently. And I think I was still grieving. And of course, I don't think that grief ever goes away. But I was a obsessive worrier. And I was always questioning myself. I was expending energy on worry. I was questioning my decisions sometimes. I was anxious, and so one Sunday at Mass or after Mass, and I can't remember if it was in the bulletin or not, the announcement, and it was advertising this program that was being led by Donna that would help with addressing things like stress and worry and weight management.
Let me interrupt, Peg, because I want to share something with you that might bring back some memories. I found the first flyer from that first program so we can all see together. So this
Yes.
is almost 6 years ago. So it said, this is the part, it's fun to go back and look at this. Who can come? All adults who have some problem or issue that they wish they didn't have, such as stress, worry, bad habits, obesity, aches and pains, and so on. And then they had to be willing to come to all the sessions and do the home practices. And so do you
yes, and I think that's the statement, the first statement of who can come, that it just jumped out at me, that first statement, all adults who have some problem or issue that they wish. And I knew that I was a worrier, and I wanted to address it somehow. Not that I didn't try before, I guess, but I felt, okay, well, I think this maybe in some way is the Holy Spirit talking to me and offering me this opportunity. So I registered.
I think you had to be brave to come. I was really proud of the people that came and stepped up to, try and make changes in their life. What is your keenest memory of like what happened?
You mean at the meetings?
Yeah.
Okay, so of course you had the introductory session and explained the process and what we would be reviewing, and I felt very encouraged by it. I do remember that, and throughout the entire program, you introduced us to centering prayer, which included mindfulness, and it may not have been, mindfulness may have been addressed separately, but to me it's centering prayer, even though and I don't know if you want to describe centering prayer to some extent at this point.
I'm going to run down this handout so I can take it off the screen, just to go through these topics that you already mentioned several. We talk about each week, the mind, body, spirit connection, and chronic stress, and mindfulness, and centering prayer, and eating habits, and exercises. So that was the agenda for those 6 weeks after the introduction. So yeah, and centering prayer was definitely presented, and maybe some of the listeners don't know about that. That wouldn't surprise me because I didn't know anything about it for years. And it's basically a form of Christian meditation with a rich history over many, many years. And it's a very simple type of prayer practice where you basically just give quiet time to God and surrender yourself to his presence. That's it. No rules, no words, no thinking, no feelings. You just surrender yourself.
No judgment.
No judgment. Big, right? So what happened?
Right. And learning to conduct, I guess, or go through centering prayer, and learning about mindfulness. I had some ideas about what mindfulness was from I had practiced a little bit of meditation prior to this, but not a lot. And it helped me, as you mentioned earlier, Donna, with the quiet, and also helped me understand that I have this spirit inside of me that is really a big part of my essence. And I also realized through this program that I needed to be mindful of the fact that other people had a spirit within themselves. And so I think that really enabled me to become more trusting. And as a result, when you become more trusting, you don't tend to worry as much. I think primarily the worry also came from the thought or the assumption that I was in control of everything.
Sounds a little bit familiar.
And not the
yeah. So
right. So I, as I said, I learned to trust more. I became much less anxious. I feel I'm one of the calmest people I know now. Oh, and sometimes when I see people that aren't calm, or whether they're friends or not, I almost want to try to pull them aside and say, "Listen, this is what you should practice. This is the type of thing that'll really get you there."
Yeah.
To the point where you feel patient.
Yeah, that's just so wonderful to hear you say those things. What always strikes me is that, we're not in control, we're not in charge, but we are invited to take steps that can make a huge difference in our health and our well-being and in our closeness to God. And you took those steps, you put yourself out there. And you are very peaceful and calm. I've never heard you even the slightest bit riled up. Peg, I should say, that was 6 years ago. She has continued to participate in the various workshops and programs that we have, and has kind of become my right hand in many respects now with some of the programs. So I should, that's a disclaimer, I guess I'm supposed to say, right? So she's been for a while. That's just wonderful. So what was there some part that was not so meaningful to you or harder in the program?
I think it's mind, body, spirit, and I think I latched onto the mind and spirit very quickly. The body part, I think, still needs some work, because I could lose some weight, and I think with my busy life, and I have a dog that's very very old, and she needs a lot of care, and so going on a walk with her is not a very energetic walk. I do tend to go on hikes now and then, but I really feel as though I should spend more time on the body and physical health part.
Well, you'll get benefit because, as we talked about so many times, the health of body, mind, and spirit are all interconnected. So it may be that you had to have a process of calming your mind and working on your relationship with God to find more peace in your life, and I'm sure that's made your body more healthy because you have less stress. Stress is terribly damaging to the health. And I bet you with time you'll step up on those things as well. It takes time. Trying to motivate ourselves to make changes is very difficult.
Yeah, it does, and I'm thinking, of course, we always put it off till tomorrow, kind of thing, but eventually I do plan on retiring. So not that I want to wait till I retire to really get into some sort of physical program, but that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Eventually.
I hope, Pagan, I haven't confused you. So she went to this program, and each week was like a different topic. And the Serenity and Health is made up of all these topics put together because if you work on your stress, you're going to help your physical health. If you work on trying to calm your mind, your blood pressure will go down. If you work on running or starting an exercise program, your brain will calm down. It all goes together. If you start trusting God, which is kind of like the big thing, and let Him carry a lot more of the burden and stop being in charge, then your physical health will improve just because of the stress reduction, if nothing else. So it's sort of a big package with all these things, and you can choose what you want to work on at any time. But a lot of times, if you're not happy with how you feel, whether you're stressed or have bad habits or just watch too much TV and eat too many chips or whatever, just start with one tiny little step, because to see a change, you got to make a change. So, yeah, well, that's pretty exciting.
And you're absolutely right. Yeah, right. And I think as far as, because we talked about diet, or not diet in the essence of a pre-planned program of some sort, but just eating healthy. And I believe I do eat healthy. I really don't eat a lot of junk foods, but I think that where I lack is probably the activity, and that's what. And you're right; it's all interrelated. So that's just something, you're right, I need to put my trust in God to guide me in that direction.
Right.
And I will.
And you will. And you can always start tiny. That's the thing. One doesn't have to plan to go to a marathon to make this process work. You can start with 10 minutes a day or something. We don't think like that, though, usually. We don't. So,
Right. I mean,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's like doing any kind of other kind of activity where you have a goal and objective, And in order to really feel a sense of accomplishment, it's nice to just take a little chunk off and do each little section or each little chunk and complete that, and towards the major goal, right?
Right. Well, maybe we could take and talk about a couple of things that you particularly learned or experienced that you might want to describe and suggest to listeners that made a big difference for you, and you kind of feel confident that other people did it, they might feel better too. I mean, you've mentioned some of them, but just let's give a good shout out, take home message to listeners on steps they might take to find better physical health, mental health, and to be closer to God.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that one of the practices that, or as far as the centering prayer is concerned, you had explained that it's really good to get into a routine of sorts. And I've read a bit even after your program, outside of your program, I read about it, and they had suggested 20 minutes, 10 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes sometimes, and really it's as long as it doesn't even matter how long it is, but the idea of being able to be with God and just put everything out of your mind, to relax, and in the morning is a great way to start the day. I think it permeates throughout the day, and there's even a suggestion to end the day with a little bit of centering prayer. And who doesn't want to or can't? It can be difficult, but I guess the argument is how can you not give 5 minutes to God?
Right.
In the morning or in the evening or any time of day.
When you say it like
it's a
that,
very right.
No, but that's
and I think the calmness that it brings.
Yeah. We have some slight technical lag.
Yeah, so the calmness that it generates.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a little bit here. Yeah, but for me, I think that it really brought the idea of calmness to my being, to my soul, to my mind. So that when I'm driving along and somebody cuts me off, or I'm in traffic and I feel like, this is one thing that I always used to get extremely anxious about, is if I had an appointment somewhere or with somebody, or I had to be somewhere at a certain time and there's traffic, and I would really spaz out almost in the car, thinking, oh my gosh, and you could just, it's just this awful feeling. And I think through the mindfulness and through the centering prayer and just the idea of the trusting, somehow it that patience just appeared, and I didn't even have to calm myself down. I think throughout the months or weeks afterwards, after your program, I really honestly did not feel that way anymore.
Yeah, boy.
And
that's beautiful.
It's almost like, what's the word?
What's the word? What?
Yeah.
I didn't
It's
hear.
almost like, what's the worst that could happen, right?
Oh, right.
A doctor's appointment.
Right.
Right. And I'm in traffic and I'm afraid that for some reason, I'll either lose my appointment or whatever. Well, so what do? You got a cell phone. Usually people have cell phones. You call the doctor and you tell them, I'm in traffic. I should be there within, I mean, that's a very courteous thing to do, and they would appreciate it. And that way you feel better about it. So then you're not as anxious.
Yeah. Yeah. Peg, through the various programs through the years, the different types of things, one of them are, it seems like what you describe, this stuff in our heads, this worry, anxiety, control, conversations in our head, what other people are thinking, what we're supposed to be doing, we're not doing it well enough, we're not doing it fast enough, somebody else has it better, blah, blah, blah. That causes a lot of suffering. A lot of participants have mentioned stuff like that, and to be able to surrender some of that and learn about trying to stay in the moment and have tools to do that, and to practice a quiet prayer like centering prayer can make a difference. I mean, obviously it's not magical, but it, like you said, it just kind of happens in a rather mysterious way. Our God is very good to us. I think it's a beautiful thing. You know what, we're going to be able...
and also there are...
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I know you know this, you know much more about this than I do, but there are studies that show how the brain can even change to align itself with the calmness, and you're sort of training your brain at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. We are going to put links to these various topics, centering prayer. Some of my blogs covered some of these specific questions we've talked about. Various references for the topics that are covered in Serenity and Health, so that you can follow up yourself. And I'm always available for questions through my website, and all that contact information will be on at the end of the video. So I think we're nearing the conclusion of the video, unless I want to ask Peg if she has one last message for our listeners.
Well, I just have a lot of gratitude, and I am so appreciative for the programs that you had and conducted, and the fact that I'm involved in caring for body and soul, and the other meetings that you hold. It really is a renewal, and it's a reminder, and it's front and center, and I really appreciate it. I can't imagine not having these activities.